But moving on to the next question, coming from Glass Coyote, and he asked, do you think somewhere in the game you'll make a decision on leaving with Marston or staying with Dutch? That's a great question. I've said this before in my live streams, the ending of the game, the gang is going to disband by the end of the game. The gang disbands in 1906, and if we're going to see time jumps in the game like it's been rumored and reported, we'll be advancing from 1899 to 1906, and the end of the game is 1906. I mean, the ending hasn't been leaked yet. I'm sure that's going to come up in the next few days before the actual game comes out, but you guys can already guess the ending. If you've played Red Dead Redemption 1, you know how it starts, which means you know how the last game, or at least this game, is supposed to end. But that's a great question, Glass Coyote. I think we may have a chance of choosing between that. Maybe that would give us an answer as to why Arthur Morgan was never mentioned in Red Dead Redemption 1. Of course, he wasn't mentioned because they weren't thinking of Red Dead Redemption 2 yet, at least the character and all that stuff. That's something Rockstar needs to answer in Red Dead Redemption 2, and this would be a great reason for that. Either he chooses to go with Marston or with Dutch, and either he dies, gets left behind, whatever you want to see in the game. That could be a great option, and I think it could be a possibility for somewhere near the end of the game, or at least, you know, towards the middle of the game or something like that. That's a great question. But moving on, Jerry Harris with question number 3 asking, do you think there will be a train line into Blackwater? The original leaked map showed no rail line, or do you think it will be built during our gameplay? Well, we have the rail line in Red Dead Redemption 1, and since it was leaked that the Red Dead Redemption 1, like the entirety of the Red Dead Redemption 1 map is returning, it makes sense that the train line would be there. But then again, that train line also went there because they were talking about that in the beginning of the game, that Tumbleweed, you know, was in its prime, and then the train line went through Armadillo. Tumbleweed, basically everyone left, packed up and left and went to Armadillo instead of Tumbleweed. That town turned into a ghost town. But is that the same train line from Blackwater? If Blackwater's a super bustling town in Red Dead Redemption 2, like it seems like it's going to be, I'm sure we're going to have a train line because that's going to be the one that takes us to Armadillo as well. And the Armadillo train line was shown off in the Outlaw Essentials collection in the description of the 3D metal train that we could build if you get that piece from the Outlaw Essentials collection. So I do think there will be a train line to Blackwater, Jerry Harris. Moving on to question number 4, James Nugent asks, do you think they will make some kind of mobile app for Red Dead Redemption 2 like they did with GTA? Now, yes, GTA did have a mobile app, and it has been rumored and teased and leaked that Red Dead Redemption 2 will also have a mobile app as well. Rockstar hasn't specifically talked about it, but they did just update their social club a couple weeks ago, and also it was rumored by trusted reviews that a mobile app was in development for Red Dead Redemption 2. It would completely make sense if we had one, and I'm sure we're going to see some type of mobile application for Red Dead Redemption 2 as just kind of like a quality of life type of thing. You can take care of your horse off the mobile app or rename it or do those little types of customization options when you're not actually in the game. You could be on your phone and just update it through there. Great question. Question number 5 comes from Rip RIP, and he asks, are you going to turn your minimap off, and what difficulty are you going to put it on? So guys, this Q&A doesn't also just have to be like, what do I think is going to be in the game? You could also ask me how I'm going to play the game like RIP did, or R1P, I guess I should say. I don't want to get your name wrong. You guys can totally feel free to ask these types of questions as well. For me, honestly, I'm going to try the game with the minimap off, but I'm going to leave it on most of the time. It doesn't take away the immersion from me. I like knowing where I'm going when I'm traveling around the map. That's one issue I had with the previous Far Cry games when the minimap, well, it really wasn't much of a map. You know, it was all blurred out. You couldn't really tell where you were going, especially when you didn't unlock certain areas and actually get the satellite towers or the cell towers and, you know, unlock the location in terms of visible view on the map. So it was all just like clouds and storms and you couldn't see the map at all. I really didn't like that in Far Cry. Obviously, Rockstar kind of did something similar with GTA 5 in the story mode. And so I feel like we're going to see something similar again. But that's why I'm playing with the minimap on so I don't get lost and so I know where I'm going. But I'm definitely going to try it with the minimap off. And then what difficulty are you putting on? I'll probably just do the normal one. I honestly didn't even know that there was going to be certain difficulties. I don't think there has been in any previous Rockstar games like GTA 4, GTA 5, or even Red Dead Redemption, but I'll just leave it on whatever the default one is if there even is difficulty. So thank you so much for asking your questions. Question number 6 comes from Fanatic Dread, and he asks, when you respawn, will you spawn at the camp, a doctor, or just near where you died, and will Arthur have to recover from his injuries? So I feel like there's room to play around with all three. Obviously in previous Rockstar games, when you die, you respawn at the hospital in GTA, or in Red Dead Redemption, you respawn at your nearest safe house. And I feel like we could see those options in Red Dead Redemption 2. You could respawn at a doctor, you could respawn at the gang's campsite, you could respawn out in the wilderness at a campsite. You could probably do whatever. I don't think Arthur's necessarily going to need to recover from his injuries. At least, you know, physical injuries like that affecting your gameplay throughout the story hasn't really been brought up by any of the hands-on previews publishers yet, and I don't think they're going to reveal anything like that. And since they haven't talked about it yet, I don't think that's going to be a thing that's in the game. But when you respawn, like when you die out in the wilderness and you respawn. I guess if you're out in the wilderness alone, you respawn at a doctor and the doctor's like operating on you or whatever. Or if you're out doing a mission with your gang and you get killed, you respawn back at the camp and you hear the gang talking about how they had to rescue you and all that stuff. I feel like there's a lot of room to play around with this stuff. So excellent question. Moving on to question number 7. Batkidian asks, do you think Red Dead Redemption 2 will be like Red Dead Redemption 1 where John dies and you play as Jack? Now I know a lot of people want this. You guys want Arthur Morgan to die and you guys want to be able to play as John or something, some type of variation like that. I feel like that's too obvious of an ending and I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I think more or less Arthur's just going to be left alone by the end of the game. He's going to be alone, sad, depressed, the gang's gone, he has no one left in his life, and that's going to be one of the most depressing endings ever. But I do think there is a possibility that Arthur Morgan can die at the end and we play as John, if that's what you're asking, unless you're asking if John dies and we play as Jack, but that's in terms of Red Dead Redemption 1. But yes, I really don't think we're going to see an ending like that. I feel like it's possible, and I don't want to rule it out, but I think it's more likely that something else is going to happen to Arthur instead, and it's going to be a different type of ending. Moving on to question number 9, Mr. Jack Ben 32 asks, do you think we will be able to own small properties like we did in Red Dead Redemption, in Red Dead Redemption 2 Online, or do you think we will just live in a sort of camp? Now, the camps and tents seem to be the main thing that's going on with the story and online. If you guys think back to the pre-order bonuses for the special and ultimate editions, or at least for the ultimate edition, sorry, because that covers story mode and online pre-order bonuses and gives you different rewards and free content and things like that, or just additional content. It's not necessarily free, but there is an outlaw like survival camp or tent theme that you can apply, and I think we could own small properties like stables for our horses or ranches, which would be like the GTA 5 equivalent of a luxury apartment. We can own a ranch in Red Dead Redemption 2 Online, but I think the main focus of the game is going to have tents, because essentially you don't need to go to like a separate game lobby. You know, when you go to your apartment, there's like a cutscene that, you know, essentially loads you into your apartment. People can't shoot through the windows or anything like that. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you could have all your loot and your horse back at your campsite, just in the wilderness, so you could pitch it wherever you want, and people could raid you, people could attack you and things like that, and it's all just featured like you're hanging out in the wilderness. And I think that's more or less how the multiplayer is going to be run, maybe with some exceptions, and eventually we'll see some small properties, but I think we could see both. Thank you so much for asking your question. Abigail Marston asks, I want to know, do you think Arthur will need to go to the bathroom? Now, honestly, if I said I never thought of this, I would be lying. This is something I've mulled over, and that's why I want to answer it in this video. It's a totally relevant question. So Arthur can eat, Arthur can sleep, Arthur can bathe, but can Arthur take a shit? That's something we all want to know. Can he piss in the river? Can he shit on a dog? I don't know. Can we? I think that we will have an option to do this in some way. You know, press L1 or press LB to take a piss. Like, that would be hilarious. In all honesty, though, I think there could be a chance for it. We do see eating, we do see sleeping, and we do see bathing Arthur Morgan as features in the game. But it didn't mention him going to the bathroom. I feel like that would be too much of a joke for the trailer. I do think it's possible. I think it's going to be a very, very minor feature. And unless you're like next to a river, you can't necessarily just take a piss wherever you want or something like that. Or, you know, maybe you could walk up to an outhouse and press like LB to enter outhouse, and you just hear like a stream running, splashing off the wood, and then Arthur steps back out. Like, that would be pretty funny. Great question. Question number 10 comes from Wason Films, and he asks, what if at the end of the gang, Arthur dies and leaves and we play as young John Marston before Red Dead Redemption, or it leads to Red Dead Redemption Remastered? Now, I wanted to bring up Wason Films' question as well, just because it's sort of different than the other question I just answered. So if Arthur dies, and let's humor this for example. Let's say Arthur dies and we get to play as John. What will happen? So I feel like we have a few options here, since the entirety of Red Dead Redemption 1's map has been confirmed by Game Insider to be in the game. That's New Austin, West Elizabeth, and Nuevo Paraiso, all going to be in Red Dead Redemption 2. And if we play as John at the end of the game, whatever happens to Arthur, say if we, or even we don't play as John, if Arthur dies or doesn't die, or we play as John or don't play as John at the end of the game, will it lead to a Red Dead Redemption Remastered? That would be the ultimate thing. I know Legacy talked about this a few weeks when it was confirmed that the entire map returned, and I got that same thought. I was like, that would be an absolutely mind-blowing end to a game, is having the remastered version of Red Dead Redemption 1 at the end of Red Dead Redemption 2. That would be a perfect segue, but you also, that would prevent people from buying, or like discouraging people from going and buying the Xbox 360, PS3 version of Red Dead Redemption 1, and sales would drop. But I think it would be really awesome, and I do think that could even be a possibility for a story DLC. Like, first story DLC before Undead Nightmare 2, or anything we could think of in terms of story DLC for Red Dead Redemption 2. What if the first story DLC was a Red Dead Redemption Remastered? That would be so cool. I would love it. I would love to see it. I would love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on that. That brings us to an end of today's Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for supporting me with all these YouTube videos here. I have a lot coming in the coming weeks. For now, drop a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Follow me on Twitter at HazardousHDTV, and I will catch you guys in the next Red Dead Redemption 2 video. Adios, amigos.